sites in Kansas City, New York, Florida, Texas, California, and expansion in South America and Europe. We believe our model will be sufficient enough to achieve our goal. Achieve your goal. Our highly qualified staff includes Joshua Davis, Dina Gorman, Daniel Guerrero, Brian Hughes, Kim Lane, Craig Moody, Derek Nelson, Brent Richardson, Doug Thibodeau, Richard Thomas. In our presentation, we'll be going over setup and configuration of Fortis and IP structure, Windows Server 2008, roles and services, OU structure and policies, accessing and routing, support, and file servers. Next up is Brian going over Fortis and IP.
Thank you, Daniel. We're starting off with our layout for our Kids Sports Incorporated Fortis structure. Starting with our North American domain, it'll be sited at the Kansas City headquarters. We also have domains for, we named them East Domain as well as West Domain, housed at Florida and Washington respectively. Within these domains, we also are planning on logically placing the Texas site and Chicago site within the North American domain, as well as the New York site will be logically placed within the East Domain, and the California site will be logically placed in the West Domain. We've made Europe and the future South American expansions planned as separate force, which trust will be created to for allowing necessary communications. Within the site variances, any site-specific variances will be handled within the OU structure for the multiple site domains. Also, at each site, as my colleagues will be talking about, we're planning on having multiple servers, duplicate servers for several roles and services. We want to make note that actually many of the actual physical servers will be handling multiple roles, so the number of servers we're actually planning on is not that great. Now, for our IP scheme, the IP scheme, we've designed it as a Cipher 22 network. This will allow up to 1,022 available IPs in each network for each site. If you're doing the math, and if you like doing the math for the subnetting on this, you'll notice that actually for a Cipher 22, the first network, for instance, Kansas City, the ending of that will be a 10.10.3.255, not a 10.10.7.255, which is the last available IP before the Texas network. This was done on purpose so that if there's ever a need for the network to expand and hold more available IPs, we have the option of either supernetting to a Cipher 21 or to just adding an additional network in between each, and that way we can also group congruently within the domains the numbering schemes. We feel by setting up our IP scheme as this, we are allowing for the greatest flexibility for any type of future growth the company does have. Now that I've talked about our overall IP structure, next will be Derek Nelson, and we'll be talking about the site-specific IP structure.
Thank you, Brian. Dynamic host configuration protocol. We will have 2 DHCP servers at each site, a primary and secondary. And as you can see, we set aside the first 50 IP addresses for static assignment. While on the primary server, we set 80% of the address pool, while on the secondary, we set 20% of the address pool for backup purposes. We also have DHCP configured default gateways as well as DNS for our clients. And now to talk about DNS is Joshua Davis.
Thank you, Derek. Good morning, my name is Joshua Davis. I'll be talking a little bit about DNS today. DNS, or Domain Name System, gives the ability to locate computers and other resources on an IP network. For the purpose of our proposed network for Kids Sports, we went with 2 Active Directory integrated DNS servers per site to resolve queries for resources in the child domains located in the U.S. We will set forward lookup zones set as stub zones, which will reduce traffic from replication over the network. To resolve queries for resources located in the foreign domains, we will use conditional forwarders so that these domains will be contacted if DNS sees the namespace used for those domains, further reducing network traffic. Now I'll hand the podium over to Kim, and she'll talk to you about links.
Good morning. I'm going to talk about the Windows Internet Naming System. There will be 2 servers at each site, and this will reduce the NetBIOS name queries. Clients can query a Win server directly instead of broadcasting. It enables the computer browser to collect and distribute lists across IP routers. It will be utilized with DNS to provide combined name searches. This will combine the name searches in both namespaces. And all Win servers will look to their direct parent for replication. It'll also create a database for centralized management and replication, and it will distribute browser lists across IP routers. I'm going to hand it to Doug Thibodeau for IP routing.
Thank you, kids. My name is Doug Thibodeau. I'm here to talk to you today about our modeling setup. We use RAS and RIP for broad access service. Basically, software-based routing solution that we use for this model. It's great for small segmented networks, relatively light traffic between networks, but obviously in the real world we suggest using a hardware router, firewall, such that it's a Cisco router. In our modeling, we use routing internet protocol, and the routers basically just talk to each other, sending in one sense the next one is routing table, and data chains down, so on, the other run so much we get a loop back in there, and that's why we suggest that we use the Cisco hardware firewall router. Network address translation, basically we're allowing a single public routable IP address to be distributed to multiple users on the inside LAN that have private addresses. This enables the company to not have to have so many IP addresses, public routable IP addresses. This way they can all share the same number to get out. Virtual private network, VPN, is what we're going to use it for people remote in their laptops. We're going to set this up with a level 2 tunneling protocol, L2BT, and IPsec. The advantages of doing this is more security of your data. Excuse me. We chose this configuration because L2 TPNs are supported by many manufacturers of firewall products such as Checkpoint, Cisco PIX, and ISA server. IPsec uses encapsulating security payload protocol, which is an ESP, to provide encapsulation or encryption of data, and when used with L2TP has many security advantages, such as L2TP requires the use of digital certificates and utilizes user authentication and computer authentication. It gives you protection of data integrity, protection from modification between the sender and recipient, authentication, which confirms that the data that's sent was sent by that person who sent it, and it prevents what's called replay, which is a hacking method used to trick the server into replaying data that they can capture. The only offset for this level of security would be a slightly slower performance over using a point-to-point tunneling protocol, but we think the security aspect outweighs that lag. And I'm going to hand it off right now to Rich to talk to you about Rich Thomas about
Thank you, Doug. My key concern when I set up the OU structure was organization and, of course, navigation. As with any job, there's always the coming and going of different people. And my long-term thought was make it as easy for whoever needs to access this to be able to. As you can see, after we created the domain, which in this example is eastksi.local, we created department domains, accounting, computer services, distribution, and 3 additional that aren't listed. From there, we broke it down by city-state location. In this example, we've used Florida. And this was all created with the DS ad, which I'll go into in just a moment. Once Florida was established, we moved on to hardware. This would be virtual hardware, not the actual hardware itself. But we worked on workstations and laptops. Within workstations and laptops, we came up with the naming scheme of the city or state initial, followed by the department initial, the device type initial, and a numerical system. Currently, it's labeled 01 through 23, and that gives you the opportunity, if you're working 8-hour shifts, that'll give you 3 groups, so you can take that number of devices, and you double, basically, or triple the use of what's available. Once we've gotten all the hardware set up, we moved on to the managers and the users. Each one would be assigned through the DS admin as well to its department. And from there would be a DS mod app group that we would use to put them into the respective zones, be it a group, domestic local, or domain local, or global group. When I wrote the DS ad, I focused on, initially, the navigation of it. I used various programs when I was writing this, and it created conflict. So we had to start from scratch, rebuild. And after this was completed and we rolled it out as a batch file, which is just a single click and the program will run itself. After that had all been configured and set up, we went ahead and manually created, through the GUI, a template user object, which was stored in the container, users within Active Directory. Now that we've covered the users and the OU structure, I'm going to hand it off to Brent so that he can discuss group policy.
Thanks, Rich. My name is Brent Richardson, and I will be discussing the group policies. Our password and login policies, the maximum password age was 30 days. The password length was 8 characters, meeting the company's complexity requirement as well. We also removed logon, removed last login, which would make a user have to put in their username and password every time they logged on. We also, every time that a user would log into a computer and hit Control-Alt-Delete to log on, a security dialog box would come up showing the company's legal disclaimer every time they logged on to every computer. We also disabled themes on all computers and added the wallpaper as shown here and briefly that you have seen at the beginning of the presentation. Applying GPO through security groups, the main policy, or KSI policy, was created in Kansas City and then from there pushed to East and West Coast. Now from the East and the West Coast, the domain controller must link the KSI policy to that coast and from there would push out to the users and the devices of that coast. Any policy created in either coast would only apply to the users and devices of that coast. Now to talk about file server is Dina Gorman.
There will be a file server at each site. Grade 5 array servers will be used to provide greater speed and fault tolerance. Disk quotas will be set to allow 5 gigabytes of data per user, sending email warnings to users exceeding 80% of data usage and email warnings to IT for users exceeding 90% utilization. A print server will be located at each site as well. Group policy will be used to set print priority. Document printers will be placed at each department, and specialty printers will be centrally located. And now here is Craig Moody to present file backups.
Thank you, Nina. Hi, I'm Craig, and I'm here to talk about file backup. For our daily backup, we chose incremental backups to start running at 10 p.m. each night, Sunday through Thursday. And for our full backup, we implemented the time for backing up all data for our weekly backup. We will manually start it at 10 p.m. on Friday, and when it is done, it will get sent off to a third-party site. And for shadow copy, we will use shadow copy for file recovery, so that end users can recover their files in a timely manner. This will cover accidental file deletion, file replacement, and file corruption. Thank you. Here's Daniel to talk about WSUS.
I'm Daniel, back to talk about WSUS, running to my cousin Jesus. Windows Server Update Services. Kansas will act as the upstream server. All other sites will act as downstream server. Kansas will update straight from Microsoft. All other downstream servers will update as well with installs being installed overnight, as well as rebooted, ready for work the next morning. Summary of our presentation. Our proposal network solution is a flexible and scalable solution for today's needs and ready for tomorrow's growth. QWOP IT Solutions, from small steps to giant leaps. Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.